There's a certain moment when you first come across the FN Herstal, not in a game or a movie, but in a real setting where it actually matters. It doesn't look overly aggressive or dramatic. In fact, compared to older rifles, it almost feels understated. But the more time you spend observing it, the more you start to realize that nothing about it is accidental. Every control, every curve, every material choice feels like it was made with a very specific purpose in mind. And that purpose goes back to a time when modern military units were searching for something more adaptable than the rifles they had been using for decades. In the early 2000s, units under USSOCOM were operating in environments that changed from one mission to the next. Urban settings, deserts, mountainous regions, each demanded something slightly different from a weapon. The issue wasn't that existing rifles were failing completely, but that they weren't flexible enough. Maintaining different platforms, managing parts, and adapting to different mission profiles created unnecessary complications. So instead of continuing to modify older designs, a decision was made to look for something entirely new. That decision led to FN Herstal, a company with a long history of building military firearms, and what they came up with was not just a rifle, but a system. During its early development, the SCAR platform went through a phase that was less about appearance and more about endurance. Prototypes were exposed to sand, mud, heavy rain, and extreme temperatures. The idea was simple. If a rifle could keep functioning under those conditions, it could be trusted anywhere. One of the defining choices in its design was the use of a short-stroke gas piston system. This system kept the internal components cleaner compared to older gas systems, which in turn improved reliability over time. Engineers kept refining small but important details, like the placement of the charging handle, the feel of the trigger, and the way the stock adjusted to different shooters. By the time the SCAR-L variant was finalized, it wasn't trying to impress visually, it was built to perform consistently. When you look at the SCAR-L closely, what stands out isn't complexity, but balance. The upper receiver is built as a single, solid piece, giving it strength and stability, especially when optics are mounted. The lower portion is lighter, helping reduce overall weight without sacrificing durability. The stock can be folded, extended, or adjusted for cheek height, which might seem like a small detail, but in real scenarios, it makes a noticeable difference. The rifle adapts to the user rather than forcing the user to adapt to it. Controls are placed in a way that both left-handed and right-handed users can operate it comfortably, and once you get familiar with it, everything feels within reach. Inside, the rifle is made up of parts that are designed not just for function, but for ease of maintenance. The barrel, bolt carrier group, gas system, upper and lower receivers, trigger assembly, and magazine all come together in a way that allows quick disassembly when needed. This matters because in real-world conditions, a weapon that is easy to maintain is more likely to stay reliable over time. The rail system along the top and sides allows different optics and accessories to be attached depending on the situation, which adds another layer of flexibility without changing the core structure of the rifle. When it comes to how the SCAR-L actually behaves during use, one of the most noticeable aspects is its recoil. Instead of a sharp, abrupt kick, it produces a smoother, more controlled push. This is influenced by the gas system and the way internal components move during the firing cycle. The recoil impulse travels more directly backward, which helps the shooter maintain better control. Because of this, follow-up shots can be taken more quickly and with greater accuracy. The timing of the recoil cycle is consistent, which is something experienced users often appreciate, especially during repeated firing. The rifle uses the 5.56 by 45 mm NATO cartridge, a round that is widely recognized for its balance between speed and controllability. When fired from the SCAR-L, the muzzle velocity typically falls in the range of about 840 to 870 meters per second. That speed contributes to a relatively flat trajectory, making it easier to stay on target at medium distances. At range, the rifle performs effectively at around 500 meters, though most practical use happens within 300 to 400 meters. At those distances, accuracy and control matter more than raw power, and that's where the SCAR-L feels most at home. Ammunition choice also plays a role in how the rifle is perceived. Compared to larger calibers, the 55-6 round produces less recoil and allows more rounds to be carried without adding too much weight. This makes it suitable for situations where mobility and sustained use are important. While some people prefer heavier calibers for their impact, the trade-off often comes in the form of increased recoil and reduced capacity. The SCAR-L leans toward efficiency and control, which aligns with the kind of scenarios it was designed for. Over time, the rifle has gained a following among those who appreciate its practical strengths. It's not necessarily about appearance or reputation, but about how it performs when it's needed most. People who have used it often mention its reliability and the way it feels consistent across different conditions. That consistency builds trust, and in any high-pressure situation, trust in your equipment matters more than anything else. When compared to rifles like the M4 carbine, the SCAR-L is often seen as more modular and slightly more robust, although it can be a bit heavier. On the other hand, when placed next to something like the AK-47, the difference becomes more about philosophy. The AK platform is known for its simplicity and ruggedness, while the SCAR-L focuses more on precision, ergonomics, and adaptability. Neither approach is universally better. It depends on what the user values and the conditions they expect to face. In the end, the SCAR-L doesn't try to replace every rifle that came before it. It doesn't rely on legacy or familiarity. Instead, it represents a shift toward modern design thinking, where flexibility, reliability, and user-focused features take priority. It's the kind of rifle that doesn't need to stand out loudly because its strengths become clear the more you understand it. And once you do, you start to see why it has earned its place among modern firearm platforms, not because it's the most famous, but because it does exactly what it was designed to do, and it does it well.